Hello, my name is Joe Dillette, owner of the carving shop, and this video is about the basics of carving. And first thing I want to talk about is the bench. That's one of the basics. Now I want to let you know this bench is at the wrong height. I've got legs that go underneath it, but I'm working on another project and I just didn't have the legs under it. But we can do the video without that. To let you know about what the proper height is for the bench, if you were to stand upright with your elbow bent here like this here, and then put your thickness of your hand under your elbow, it should touch the top of the bench. So my legs on the bench, when I'm carving in this position, I raise the bench up to carve. And it's easier on the back, so you can stand straight. The proper way to do it is to stand straight at the bench, to use your legs and your arms in the carving, because that is all part of the power and the control of using the carving tools. The next thing, we're going to talk about the traditional way that carvers carve. And so they normally attach the wood to the bench with the grain going the long way. So I've got a piece of wood attached to the bench. This is a piece of basswood that we're going to be working with. And I just have it fastened between two bench dogs so it's secure. You don't want to be picking up the piece of wood and the carving tool and carving like this. That's dangerous. It'll stab you in the hand. You want both hands free to control and push that tool, or both hands, one to have the tool and the other one to use the mallet. So we will talk about that. Let's go through the rest of the equipment. I have my tool holder. This tool holder has got all my tools. They're all in specific order. I have my V-tools in one place, the gouges in another, the veiners in another. I can look at this at one glance and I know all my tools are there. It's clamped in there so it doesn't tip out. It slides along my bench, so no matter where I'm working on the bench, I can pull it into next to me. One glance I can tell if there's any tools that are missing. This comes out and it fits. I can take it out of the holder. It comes out, and then I've got a cover to go over it with a handle to carry it. So this is not only my tool holder, but it's also my carrying it. So that's part of my equipment. Now this isn't a traditional way that carvers use chisels. What the carvers do is they typically lay their tools on the bench out in front of them like that. And normally the bench that I work on, my projects like fireplace mantles, take up the whole part of the bench and stick over the end. And I sit down in front, and that's the height that I use this bench at then, if I'm sitting in front working on a surface out in this surface here, looking right at it. So I don't have the room on the bench to lay the tools out, so I have the tools in this holder. So that covers the tools. The mallets, I have two mallets. I like the rubberized mallets. The wood mallets are more traditional, but when I'm carving at shows, and these mallets with the neoprene on it is softer, and it doesn't make as loud a noise. And so that's why I like these mallets. The rubber mallets are also a little bit better for the carving. If you're hitting the chisel with the mallet, what the rubber does is it stores a little bit of the energy because it's a little softer surface, and it returns it back into the tool. If you have a wood mallet, it's one sharp spike, and a lot of that energy under that spike is lost before it gets a chance to move the tool forward. So you can hit not only a little quieter, but also a little softer and accomplish the same task here. Also, the rubber mallet doesn't beat up the end of your chisels either. The wood mallet, sometimes if you're hitting real hard, starts to mush over the wood, where the rubber mallet does not. So that's some advantages. I used to go through a lot of wood mallets with splintering off the wood from the mallet, and that was mainly because of the sculptor chisels that have the metal ring on it. That metal ring would eat away at the mallet, so I would go through wood mallets. That has not happened here. You can see, well, maybe you can't, but in the center of this mallet is where this ring has been hitting, and it's scuffed up going right around the center. But that mallet has lasted me many years. So this is a 20 ounce, this is a 12 ounce. That's basically the equipment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the camera in, and I'm going to focus on this piece of wood, and I'm going to show you the basics of using a chisel. So what we're looking at is the board fastened down to the workbench between the dogs, and I tried to adjust the lighting so you can see a little better what I'm going to be carving in here. So hopefully what you're going to see is going to be visible on the screen. And also I'm going to let you know I'm working around the tripod here. I might bump it, but most of all it's kind of in my way. I should be standing in front of it. So when I do the techniques, the right and left hand carving, I am not really in position to do that, but I will demonstrate it best I can. The view that you're looking at is the same view that the carver is looking at. So the tripod and the camera is sitting right in front where I would normally stand. So the way to picture the wood is the grain is all running the long way, and they're just fibers is what they are. The fibers are bound together, so the fibers, some parts of the fiber is hard, some part of the fiber is soft. And the way to picture it is if you're looking at a paintbrush, and the paintbrush is cut on an angle like this. If I wanted to make a smooth cut on the bottom of this paintbrush, I would go in this direction. Because in this direction, one bristle is supporting the next, and it makes a smooth cut. If I was to reverse it and go in this direction, coming down, I am pulling the bristles out because the next bristle is not supporting the one that I'm just cutting. So that's why it pulls the bristle out. So this side would make a rough cut, and this side here, coming up in that direction, makes a smooth cut. So when you're taking a chisel and you're cutting across the piece of wood, like so, you have, let me cut a little deeper, you might be able to see that better. You have a smooth side and a rough side to the cut. So this side here that we were going up is the smooth side. So if you were to look at this very close, on this side the cut it's smooth. If you were to look at it from this side, wherein the tool is going up, it was trying to pull the fibers out. This side is the rough side. In reality, the tool is quite sharp, and this basswood we're carving is very nice fine grain. You would see very little difference in the two sides of the cut. But what makes the difference is, let's say you wanted to put another line right next to this here, and you wanted a thin area between these two lines. So what you're trying to do is make a little raised area between these two cuts. Now if I'm coming up in this direction here, making the second cut so I have a raised area in between, then what I'm doing is I'm coming up and I'm making that side of what I'm trying to save, that delicate area, is going to be rough. And I would stand a better chance of making a better cut coming down in this direction, making it smooth. Because what happens, if I'm coming up, this is the wrong direction to go, if I'm trying to make this area in between not chip out. it's going to have a better chance of chipping out and if I go in the wrong direction here. So to complete this cut, what I need to do is come from the top down in this direction, because we're looking at the brush again, that's the smooth cut. And it's not coming up, you're trying to pull the fibers and you stand a better chance of breaking into it. So most of the time when something chips out on a carver while he's carving is because the carver was going in the wrong direction on the grain. So without thinking, if the carver started going up on this side, he may break into that area. So that's just something to keep in mind. So even though you can see very little difference between the smooth and the rough side, that is the reason why we need to keep track of what direction the grain is, and to know that if I'm coming up in this way, this direction, that I stand a very good chance of chipping out, that I need to come down in the other direction. So the right and left hand carving, when you're pushing the tool through, is accomplished by, you have one hand is your control hand, that is up close to the cutting edge, and that's resting on the piece. The control hand is getting its control from the piece, and it is controlling the angle. And it also is controlling the pressure that you're putting on. So your power hand is away from the cutting edge, and that's pushing the chisel forward, and the control hand is pushing back. So it's controlling how much power, and it does the turning, it does the depth control by the angle, and it's got the stability because it's resting right onto the wood. And so when you're switching, need to get around the other side of the tripod here, you just switch hands, and now the left hand is becoming the control hand and the right hand is now the power hand. So and you push in that direction. So the value of doing right and left hand carving is you don't have to keep unclamping your piece and turning it around. So I suggest that you learn to do the right and left hand carving. It will save you a lot of flipping the piece back and forth. Now when you're using a mallet, let's say you have an intricate pattern here, say it's some lobes on a leaf or something, and to follow that, you take the mallet and you're just tapping, and I'm just following right on the outside of that line. Now I didn't switch hands, so you don't do right and left hand carving with a mallet, just by pushing it through hands. So the small mallet we've just seen is for control, and sometimes when you're pushing by hand, and if it is more, you're more prone to slipping and going like this through a delicate piece, then if you feel that you don't have the control that you need in a certain area, maybe it's the wood or something, or maybe the wood is too hard to push through, maybe it's oak or something, and then you use the mallet. And the mallet gives you that control, and it also adds a little power to it. The larger mallet is for control. So let's get into the larger mallets for the power. So let's get into doing more with the direction of the grain, and then we'll talk more about the mallets. So let's say we had a circle, and let's put the circle over here. And let's talk about the smooth and the rough side of the carving. This is very important. Just when we were talking about these two lines and saving that area in between, we want to now create this circle with a smooth surface all the way around, with the circle being raised out, and which means we have to cut the background down. So the first thing we do is we divide that circle into 4 quadrants. This being quadrant number 1, this being quadrant number 2, number 3, and number 4. And so let's go back to the brush. when we look at this grain and we look at quadrant 1 here, this quadrant 1, we're keeping the brush in the inside the circle. Okay, so in other words, visualize this being the part of the brush, quadrant 1, sticking out like this. So we want to keep this cut going in a nice smooth direction, so we go in that direction. So let's put the arrow indicating the right direction right there. Now we flip it over for quadrant number 4, because this is the furthest point, this is the point that is back more. And so in the direction to make this here surface right up by the line smooth and to raise the circle out, we need to go in this direction, coming around like that. Now it's just the opposite for the other side. The number 3 quadrant then is going to have to go in this direction, and the number 4 quadrant is going to have to go in that direction. So then we use the right and left hand techniques for doing that. Now I'll start a little bit on this side of the quadrant line that I had, and I'm going to run the chisel, and I'm controlling it so the wing is just up against the line. I'm trying not to lose my line. So ideally, if you want to cut that line in half. And now doing the same from the bottom here, coming up. And just the way that I'm standing off to the side, I have to switch hands right now. I'm coming right up like that. Come around to the other side of the tripod here. And we're coming down this way. Now when you're going exactly perpendicular with the grain, it doesn't make any difference. So I go past the quadrant line a little bit here. So if you're going perpendicular with the grain in a cut like that, it doesn't make any difference which if you go up or down. It's going to give you the same results on both sides. Let's finish the circle off. So we have done what we call a stop cut around that circle. And the reason why it's called a stop cut, because when we start cutting the background out, then what we're going to do is we're going to stop the wood from chipping out into the circle, because we're trying to save that circle. So we're trying to cut down to the bottom of the stop cut. So you're using the same right and left hand techniques, this being the control hand, the power hand away from the chisel, away from the cutting edge. And you're coming around and you're trying not to go below that the stop cut. Here is this little piece that I went below the stop cut, and what it does, I'll go below the stop cut here. And it just doesn't give you a clean cut. You see how the chip is not coming off, it's still fastened in there. And so that's how, when people have a real ragged looking carving, it's because they're going below their stop cuts. They need to just come down to meet the stop cut or stop a little bit short of it. Then their carving will remain clean. Now notice the direction that I'm going to do the background. The arrow is coming in this direction to do quadrant number 3 to get the smooth side here, but now I'm trying to create the smooth side coming down. So here is the grain and the type of cut we're trying to make. So I'm trying to keep the smooth side to the outside here now, so I'm coming down in this direction. And that's the way we go around the piece. And again, I didn't do the stop cut deep enough, or I cut a little bit too deep with this chisel, so I've gotten a little bit of fuzzy. Here, just get the whiskers off. There. Now we were talking about the mallets, and the mallet being the tool that is for the power. The chisels are made to be used in 3 directions. Okay, so The first direction, you apply the power with the mallet. You're using the chisel to gouge in this direction, and you're hitting hard to get through the hard wood, and so that's the first direction that you use the chisel. The second direction that you use the chisel is a plunge cut. So you can make your stop cuts with a plunge cut coming down. And what they use is the heavy mallet. And if you took a mallet and you made multiple taps like that, then it's very difficult to control the depth of each one. You might count the cuts, but you might hit it a little bit harder one time and then the other. So the proper way to use for your stop cuts, use the heavy mallet, is you raise it the same amount every time and you just let it drop just once. Then you move it around, just let it drop. And if you raise it the same height every time and just let her come and drop, you are going to achieve pretty close to the same depth all the way around. So that's one of the ways to use the heavy mallet. The other direction, so that's two directions. This direction here, right side up for the tool is the first way to use it. The second way is a plunge cut coming down. The third way is upside down. Upside down is where you are taking and rounding the edge off. So let's say you're making grapes and you're rounding the edge. Now to do that, if you look at the sharpening video, you'll see that when we buffed that inside, we used leather and it created just a little micro bevel on the inside. And you need that. If you didn't have any bevel on the inside, you couldn't control the cut. You couldn't come up out of the cut. So in order to use the chisel upside down, you need just a very slight bevel at a minimum in the inside to bring it out of the cut. Regardless of what type of carving you're doing, if it's a relief carving or carving in the round, you are always doing the same, doing the stop cut and then relieving the background, going down to the bottom of the stop cut. If you want to go deeper, you redo the stop cut and then you take out more background. So it's that repeat process. Now in carving like this, the circle being the top of their heads, you still have to go in the right direction all the time to make the stop cut and then relieve out the background. So that, like I say, is regardless of a relief carving like this where you're just relieving the surface, or if you're carving in the round. Now carving in the round, you're using the same techniques. We go back to the brush. The grain's going this way through the carving. So this here stop cut on this here head as you're coming up would be in this direction. You're coming up like that, and then on this side you're coming up in this direction. So you're coming up like that. Now when you're doing here between the eagle's head, it's like this. So you're coming with your stop cut in a downward direction, so you don't split and take a chance of splitting this off. So you're coming in a downward direction there. And even around here, so you look at it again, here it is, and your stop cut is cut up in this direction. Most people would try to come down here because it's easier, because you're going down the carving. But no, it has to be done coming up, or you're going to chip right into the carving like that. You're going to chip pieces off. So, in the same way in the back. Here, one you're doing around the eagle's wing coming down. You have to make your stop cuts coming in this direction, coming down, and the same way here, coming in downward direction. And then again, the head here, you're coming up in this direction and in this direction. So it's all the same principle. So once you learn that technique, the direction to go on the grain, then it's a matter of just keeping that in mind. And once in a while, I even find myself making a mistake. I'm going the wrong direction. But you can feel it with the chisel. Carving is all common sense. Once you feel it and it's not going smoothly, then stop. And then think about the direction of the grain. Think about the brush and the angle that it's on and what angle is your face on. all the grain being here in this face, almost all the cuts had to be coming up because of the slope back in the face. And the underside here, your stop cut, you start lower and you work in both directions. So you're coming in the downward motion here on it, and then coming in the upward direction here. So it's that same principle no matter what you're doing. People have trouble breaking out around the eyes because the eyes have very fine, especially in the cedar, very difficult. There it's very important to watch this cut coming down in this direction on the inside of the eye, then coming up on the other side in the right direction. And if you made a mistake in here, you're going to lose that eyelid very quickly. So it's very important to practice going in the right direction all the time. Thank you very much.